your second appendectomy. It seems like I didn't know that was an epidemic going on, but when can you give me the time frame when that happened with Connor and what's?
Well, the only, every doctor handles that differently. Sometimes guys play right away, and other times guys are held out for a couple weeks. These guys will be held out for a couple weeks here.
You said you're going to go with Cummings as a true freshman. You said he was hurt a little bit earlier. You thought about maybe playing him. So what is it about him that you have enough confidence to start him right now?
Well, what we've seen when he was practicing before, we were looking at pulling his red shirt at that time. He's got good sudden movement. He's physical. He's aggressive. He's been able to pick up the elements of our offensive line faster than usual. And so we've got a lot of confidence in Ryan and excited to see how he's going to do.
Is Nathan, is he available, or is he still going through the protocol?
He's going through a process of evaluation with concussion symptoms.
Coach, you said last week how important it was going forward to kind of establish 5 offensive linemen. What's this kind of challenge like when you're continuing to reestablish different groups of guys, working in?
That's why we have coach on our shirt. I don't mean that in a smart aleck comment. What you do is you get the next guys in there ready to play and come up with the best game plan and present leadership and create a vision for us to move forward as an offense.
You mentioned that you guys did practice quite a bit last week and stuff. How did that go? Did you get a lot accomplished? Were you pleased with the focus and just what you were able to accomplish practice-wise last week?
Yes and no. I think anytime you're establishing new systems, we made progress. The things that we have noticed about this group, though, is if you get away for a day or so, you're almost back to the drawing board because the foundational elements of our offense, defense, and kicking game are still pretty elementary. And so it was good. We had a practice on Saturday. Sometimes, some years, we've chosen not to practice on a Saturday. With this group, we chose to practice, and I think it was well worth it, and it'll be important that we come out today and move forward.
Coach, after with the bye week being as it was, 5 games on in, any kind of first half analysis or assessment you can kind of look at or hang your hat on going forward now with a full slate on your schedule?
Yeah, there certainly are. Within our football team, I think we've been able to at times run the ball really well, and we created some holes. I watched the University of Nebraska against Michigan State, and they had a very difficult time running, and thought we were able to run the ball at times, somewhat effectively against Michigan State. So I think within different parts of our offense, I think we got a pretty solid running game. Certainly we have a stable of running backs who are very capable of breaking some tackles and making some long runs. The other thing about Colby is if we position him correctly, either through play action pass or staying out as third down and long as much as what we can, and that's somewhat of a broad-based statement. That's easy to say and tough to do, but I think we're going to be much further along by not doing that. Defensively, I think we've got some solid guys up front, but we it's become really apparent that our pass rush is deficient right now. You go through 5 games without a sack, that becomes glaringly obvious. The other thing is we've not been great. We've had opportunities for interceptions, and we have not capitalized on those. And so we're working really hard this last week on those 2 portions of our defense. I think there are other parts of our defense that are really solid, though. We have prevented, for the most part, tons of big plays. I think at times we've defended the run very well. There's been other times we've been a little bit deficient, but against a team like Air Force, who's proving to be a pretty good offense, we stacked up fairly well. And so the run defense, I think, can be good. In the kicking game, I think we're developing a good place kicker. He's certainly gaining more confidence. I think our field position has, by and large, I think we've either gotten a draw on the special teams or maybe a little bit ahead. So that's where we're at. It'll be interesting now that we're going to be in the heart of conference play. It appears to me everybody knocking off everybody. So each week you have an opportunity to win and also an opportunity to lose. And so Lou Holtz once said you bring a different football team to the stadium each Saturday, I don't know if I completely agree with that, but there's a lot of wisdom of what he says.
Final, other point I was mentioning, I was going to ask was regarding the bye week. How much was it to try and just keep to a normal schedule, and were there any kind of deviance from the schedule to kind of like allow for a little bit of a break for you guys?
There were a couple days that we emphasized active rest and lifting and conditioning, because I think in our strength staff, Coach Ball's done a great job moving those guys forward. You don't want to just say, hey, go home and rest, but there were things that we did for recovery. And there were, you cannot take the cookie cover approach and have every player treated exactly the same. There's some guys that we've given, some days off. I know Mark Nazacha had been battling turf toe and a pulled groin. Well, he did some more activities that were not on the field. And other guys, we pushed them pretty hard. So that comes into a body of work that you learn as a head coach, how to work a football team in the bye week, and we're in hopes that we utilize that time wisely.
Coach talked to Eddie Ober last week, and he said that you got to treat this like a business trip going over to the islands, and there's some obvious distractions maybe outside of the game. Is there a worry about that going over to the islands and such a long road trip, and how kind of we handle that this week?
Well, we can't control the distance and the time change. What we can control is our protocol and how we operate, and that's part of what we'll do. He's right, this is a business trip. We'll adjust our timelines, but once we get in the routine of the pregame meal and everything else and our time structure, that's always going to be exactly the same. But I can tell you there's not going to be any sightseeing trips. Whether we got the ocean behind us, we don't care. We got a hotel room, a meeting room, and a ride to the stadium.
Coach, you guys have not been on the right side of field position a lot so far. A lot of drives starting within your own 20. How do you kind of reverse that, and how important is that for this offense to not be, pushed back so much?
Well, it's been a really trying time because, particularly on our kickoff returns, we've got to get some field position generated there. Some of that can be attributed to, when you have some really fine, skilled athletes and they're running down covering kicks and you're having a hard time blocking them, that's the first indication that, it's going to be a long day. And I'm in hopes it will match up better as far as with our kickoff return group. Now, Hawaii does pose some challenges with their punt game. They have a rugby-style punter that punts left-footed and right-footed, and very few times people get returns that are moving around, and there's always a fake that's presented, and so that will pose a challenge. But for us to generate some field position either through takeaways or special teams is going to be really important for us to have a chance to win this game.
Craig, you mentioned Wise offense and stuff, but it seems like defensively they've really made some big-time improvements too. What are you seeing from them defensively right now?
Well, the numbers don't lie. They operate out of a 3-down system, and that has posed us challenges. And what is particularly challenging is those 3 guys that they have down. I mean, they're big, strong guys that cancel gaps up front. There's much more of I guess you can see a philosophy running through all their defensive games, that they're not, in a sense, grab-bagging things. They have a system, and those players play fast to that system, and their point total reflects that.
Coach, Colby, it seems like a large chunk of his passing yards, he's had some deep balls thus far in the first 5 games. I mean, how much faith do you have in him in those 40, 50-yard passes to let him, throw those balls?
Well, that's been a part of our offense I didn't note earlier that has become apparent too. I was focusing probably too much on the running game, but we've had several big plays, and against all kinds of people, whether it was Oregon or Michigan State or Florida Atlantic, and some of it can be attributed to his ability to throw the ball deep. I think we've done a pretty good job at times protecting, at times giving up too many sacks, but I think a big portion of that success goes down to the playmakers that we have at the wide receiver position.
You mentioned you try to keep, obviously, it's a business trip, but will you be leaving Thursday for Hawaii, and does that mess up your practice schedule where you leave after practice, or how will that work?
We'll practice Thursday and then hop on the plane and go out, and what has made a difference is a bye week, so we've been able to work some Hawaiian schemes along with the fundamentals that we talked about earlier. But to leave Thursday gives us a little bit of a break-in period. There is a 4-hour time change for our guys to get a little bit acclimated, because I know what's going to happen. They're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and look outside and say it's dark. And so we've got to get ourselves adjusted a little